Blessed be everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss the differences between a book of shadows and a journal. Some people like to put them in together, and that's fine. Other people, like myself, like to do it all separately. So I'm going to go over what a book of shadows is and what that has in it, and what a journal is and how you can use a journal to help your magical practice and your spiritual practice. Before we dive in though, my name is Sandra and I am the author of Crafting Your Wiccan Path. I help witches like you to unlock your personal potential through magic, through mindset, and through spiritual transformation. And if you do want to know where to start your witchcraft practice, but you're just fumbling around trying to figure out, well, where do I start and how do I pace myself along the way? What do I learn and when? I have a free video called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. It is a masterclass and you can pick that up. There's a link in the description field below this video, and you can also go and grab a copy of that on my website, mysterywitchschool.com. You can find that as soon as you get there, and also on my freebies tab on that website. So a book of shadows is also known as a BOS, and we use that to pretty much collect information that we need for our magic and our spell work. A book of shadows is essentially a grimoire, really. It has all of the things in it that we need to know about magic. So it can be quite an extensive thing. So when I first started, I didn't know how extensive a book of shadows was, and so I only had this tiny little notepad type thing as my book of shadows. And then I started to extend it and I got a bigger book. But really, a book of shadows has got so many different sections in it, and there's so many things you would want to add to it, that it's probably just a good idea, if you're wanting it in more of a traditional written form, to actually just go grab yourself a folder like something similar to what I've got here, and just grab some loose leaf filler pages and write everything out and fill it in and organize it as you would any other kind of folder, using the old-fashioned method of writing things down rather than putting it all into a laptop. Some people like to use books. This was one of my first ones. It still has a lot of rituals and spells in it that I used first up the first few years of me practicing the craft. But then I discovered that I really needed to go into using basically a folder and putting things together that way. I started putting one together on my laptop, but I just find that although it's useful to have spells and everything written out, and I still have all that reference in there, I prefer to go to something that is actually written. I like the idea of writing down my spells, and so I still write them down. It's just, I don't know, it just feels more connected when I'm actually physically writing something rather than typing it into a laptop. But it's perfectly okay for you to have your journal and your book of shadows on your laptop or whatever device you use. That's fine. Now, with a book of shadows, what does it contain? It's the information that we want to refer to. So it's going to be where your spells are written out and kept. It's going to be where all of the correspondences and tools that you use in your magic, they're going to be there too. So what an anathema is, what a wand is, what a pentacle is, what a cup is, it's all going to be written out, the definitions of all those things. The herbs, you'll have a section on herbs. And so all of the herbs that you use, you'll be writing out what they're used for when it comes to magic. And you may also want to put in your book of shadows what they're used for when it comes to healing as well. All of the crystal correspondences will be there. And we call them correspondences because what we use them for corresponds to our spell work. So if we're using rose quartz, that corresponds to love and compassion and healing. So we'd use a rose quartz in those kinds of spells. So you'll keep all of that information in your book of shadows. And all of the different correspondences will go there. So your color correspondences will go there. Like pink for love, red for passion, a green for money, that will all go there. The days of the week and what the days of the week correspond to will go in your book of shadows. You will also have the lunar phases written out in your Book of Shadows. The Sabbats written out in your Book of Shadows. All of the rituals that you would do for the lunar occasions and also the Sabbats will be in your Book of Shadows. So it's a resource that you go to look things up. I want to do a spell for such and such. You go to your Book of Shadows and you do a spell from that. I want to know what I can use in a money spell as a herb. I'll go to my Book of Shadows and I'll find that out. What day of the week would be best for this spell? And you probably already know that because there's only 7 days of the week and it's pretty easy to figure out which day of the week is the right one. But that would be in your Book of Shadows too. So anything you have to reference for a spell, like deities, what deities are good to work for or work with, I should say, for different things will be in your Book of Shadows. So it's a huge, 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 huge reference guide. Now, some of us more lazy witches won't necessarily put all of these things in our Book of Shadows. We may just take it from various different sources and have it about the place. Like I tend to have quite a few different Books of Shadows. I don't just have one. When I first started out, I was using an index system. So I had a special index book for the herbs, an index book for general correspondences, and an index book for the crystal correspondences. So they were all in separate books, but you can still put them all together in your Book of Shadows. Other things you might want to put in your Book of Shadows are the astrology, the difference between a sun sign, a moon sign, and a rising sign. You could put in your own astrology and what your natal chart says about you. Like what is your ascendant or rising? What is your sun sign? What is your moon sign? Where's your north node? All of those things can go in your Book of Shadows. Even though they're getting a little bit more personal, you can still put them in your Book of Shadows. So it's a reference guide. So whatever you want to reference, stick it in your Book of Shadows. Now, it can be confusing because you've got all these different categories. So I like to put them in their categories. Like spells themselves go in the spell category. The correspondences go in their category. So that would be the herbal correspondences are in one area. Crystal correspondences are in another area. Colors are in another area. That's a huge area, the correspondences list, as your spells will become as well if you do enough of them. Then I'll have rituals under another section. So this will be the lunar rites, the Sabbat rituals. Then there'll be a section on deities. So this is the various different deities and how you work with each deity for various different things. So think about categories when you're creating your Book of Shadows so that it's nice and organized and you know where to go to get the information. Now, it is easier online to do this or to do this on a laptop or something because you can just go in and grab it out. And if you need to print out your spell, you can just print it out or just look at it on your phone. So certainly using technology can help with organizing things, keeping everything well organized and be very easy to actually access. But a lot of witches like to get into the feeling of actually creating the Book of Shadows physically, like writing. Because when we write, we are putting our energy into something. More so than when we're typing something. So there's more energy that's going into a Book of Shadows when it actually is a physical object that you've actually physically gone to the effort and energy of writing in. So it's up to you which way you want to do it. Now, a journal is a different thing altogether. So this is my current journal at the moment. And what goes in the journal is more of the personal stuff, your experiences, your ponderings, those kinds of things. So your daily practice. Now, the actual form of your daily practice, like the ritual form, would go in your Book of Shadows, but the results that you get from your daily practice would go in your journal. So any intentions that you're wanting to put into your daily practice would go into your journal. Results of things that you've done in your daily practice will go in your journal. You could put dreams in your journal. Sometimes people like to do a separate dream journal altogether for dreams, particularly if you're recording them every day and you're really getting very seriously into your dreams. You may want to do a separate book altogether. Or if you're just doing dreams once or twice a week, you can stick them in your journal. And the interpretations of your dreams can also go into the journal. And any brainstorming that you do to help you interpret the dream can go in your journal. Meditations can go into your journal. So while you might want to copy the format of a meditation, like write the whole thing out, that would go in your Book of Shadows under the meditation section. The results of the meditation would go in your the results of your meditation. The results of your meditation would go in your journal. So anything that you've perceived, anything you saw in your meditations, you felt in your meditations, the journeying that you might have gone on in your meditations, the results of that and your reflections on that will go in your journal. The results of your spells will go in your journal. So you've got your spells in your Book of Shadows, but when it comes to the results or anything that you're noticing that happens after the spell, like any opportunities that come up or any inspiration that you have to take inspired action, put that in your journal. You can reference it to the spell in your Book of Shadows, but the information of the results of your spells goes in your journal, not the Book of Shadows. Your shadow work definitely goes in your journal because that's going to be something that's ongoing and it's something that you're reflecting on and something that you may be also relating to your dreams, because dreams are a big part of shadow work as well. So when you're doing a shadow work, you would put that or any results or anything that you've realized, or even just the journaling exercises themselves in your journal. If you're following any kind of course, like most of my courses have some kind of journaling work in them, particularly the Journey with Hekate course, you may want to put all of that information that you discover about the journaling from doing those courses in your journal as well. So your journal is about you. It's where you're reflecting, where you're collecting the information on your experiences and your results, whereas the Book of Shadows is just the reference to the actual practical side of doing stuff and gathering everything together. I like to have them separate. It makes sense to me to have them separate. Otherwise, your Book of Shadows is going to become huge and you're going to end up with volumes of Books of Shadows. So it won't be a Book of Shadows, it'll be Books of Shadows. Because the journaling stuff, I've got books and books and books of journals, way more journals than I do Books of Shadows. Some people like to put them together. It's up to you. There's no rule. There's no rule that says your Book of Shadows has to just be the reference material and your journal has to be the personal stuff. There aren't a lot of rules. In fact, there's very few rules when it comes to this kind of thing. There's maybe some conventions. I could certainly say there's conventions when it comes to the craft, but not necessarily a lot of rules when it comes to it. So these are things that you discover for yourself and you create for yourself. Now, I love helping people with their witchcraft practice. I love teaching people how to create a Book of Shadows, how to do circle work, how to do the lunar rites, how to work with the Sabbats and with the deities, introducing yourself to deities, maybe even discovering your matron or patron deity, and also working with energy. All of the things that go into being a witch. I love helping people discover the witch within and becoming who you truly are so that you can actually bring your spiritual practice into your life every day and make your life a sacred practice rather than it being a separate thing. You know, you've got the normal workaday world and then you've got that need to connect to spirit. How do you bring all of this in together? So that's why I created the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, and you can enroll in that at any time. It is my course, my foundation course really, in teaching people Wicca and witchcraft. You can find the links to that and more information about that on my website, mysterywitchschool.com, and there's also links in the description field below this video. So that's Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. It's a 12-month course and it really helps you start to learn how to practice the craft nice and slowly. You can take longer than 12 months. You're not stuck at having to finish it in 12 months. In fact, some people take longer than that, and that's fine. So if this is a year for you to really explore your witchcraft practice, the Mystery Witch School One-on-One Academy could just very well be for you. Now, if you liked the video, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe. I will see you on the next video. Blessed be.